is it a crime? I don't care what state. If you don't want to wear a seatbelt, then don't wear one. What crime have you committed? Gee, do I have to yell it to get to your head?
So I'm here today in Troy, Michigan to cover the story of a man that you probably would remember from the 80s and 90s, one of the most controversial men of all time, Dr. Jack Kevorkian. The media called him Dr. Death. Jack Kevorkian, he was more than just a doctor. He was a catalyst for one of the most controversial medical debates in our history, the right to die. Jack Kevorkian was born on May 26, 1928 in Pontiac, Michigan, which is about 20 minutes or so away from where I'm at currently. He was born to Armenian immigrant parents who had fled the horrors of the Armenian genocide. He was a brilliant student. He graduated from high school at just 17, and he earned his medical degree from the University of Michigan in 1952. He had an intense curiosity, not just about medicine, but about the human condition, life and death, and what lies in between. And by the late 60s, he was already publishing controversial essays proposing medical experimentation on death row inmates and the idea of death counseling. This happened decades before the concept of a physician-assisted suicide gained national attention. So in 1989, Jack Kevorkian, he constructed a machine that he would call the Mercitron. It was a simple but grim, if you will, homicide device that allowed terminally ill patients to self-administer lethal doses of, I think it's sodium, I can't think of the word, sodium tripentanol, something like that, followed by potassium chloride, which causes painless death by cardiac arrest. That same year, in 1989, he assisted his first patient, Janet Adkins, who was a 54-year-old woman suffering from early stage Alzheimer's. And with her husband's support, she contacted Kevorkian and used the Mercitron in the back of his Volkswagen van. And within minutes, she was deceased. We're going to go to that location where that took place. It's about 20 minutes away from here. What followed was a decade-long legal and ethical media firestorm. From 1990 to 1998, Kevorkian claimed to have assisted in the deaths of over 130 patients, most suffering from terminal or a debilitating illness. Kevorkian did several interviews with media where he went on to say that he helps people end their suffering, and that's not murder, that's compassion. So Jack Kevorkian was arrested multiple times, but until '99, he was never convicted. His actions expressed a legal gray area because there was no laws in Michigan specifically prohibiting physician-assisted suicide at that time. And then came 1998, where Jack Kevorkian made a very bold, irreversible move. He allowed 60 Minutes, which I think is a CBS program, 60 Minutes, to air footage of him directly administering a lethal injection to a man named Thomas Yoke, who was a man suffering from ALS. And unlike the past cases, this time Kevorkian personally pushed the syringe, crossing the line from assistance to active euthanasia. At that time, the state of Michigan charged him with second-degree murder. And then in 1999, Kevorkian was convicted and sentenced to 10 to 25 years in prison due to that assisted suicide on live TV. He only ended up serving 8 years and was released in 2007 on the condition that he would not assist in any further suicides. So I know we're close to his grave. I just happened to see this. It's kind of pointing at an odd direction, but Baby Stein, May 30th, 1966. Maybe possibly stillborn, or I'm not sure. What a shame. Back to Kevorkian. So after his release, he lectured across the country. He appeared on talk shows and even ran for Congress here in Michigan, unsuccessfully, of course.
You got every right in the world to do and say what you want as long as you don't threaten or harm anybody or any property.
And he was portrayed by Al Pacino in HBO's movie, I believe it was called You Don't Know Jack, back in 2009 or 2010, somewhere in that area. This film humanized his crusade and sparked kind of a renewed debate regarding his actions. Oh, there he is. And I found him. Jack Kevorkian, MD, beloved brother and uncle, 1928 to 2011. He sacrificed himself for everyone's rights. There he is. Wow. It's crazy to be standing at the final resting place of such a controversial person. I don't think anybody that's maybe, 30 or older doesn't know about Jack Kevorkian or remember him. He actually died on June 3rd of 2011 from kidney and heart failure at the age of 83. He never expressed regret. He believed that suffering without dignity was a crime, and he had a moral obligation to stop it. He didn't think what he did was any worse than doctors trying to keep cancer patients alive. He felt that was more barbaric than him assisting in these folks ending their life at their own will, if you will. So, and Margaret, his sister, I just seen this. Margaret Kevorkian, Janice, beloved mother and sister, she passed away in 94. Now, he had two sisters. I do not recall the other one's name, but Margaret I know because she assisted him with this. She would keep records of the patients, if you want to call them that he assisted with, and she would also videotape the assisted suicides that he would perform on these people, or that he would assist them with performing. So they were pretty close, had a pretty close bond, and she was kind of his partner in crime, if you will. But yeah, Jack Kevorkian, wow, what a name. I remember I was a youngster when all this was happening, and growing up as a teenager, I remember all the coverage and all the controversy regarding Jack Kevorkian. So where do things stand now? Well, since his time, the landscape has changed a little bit. I know that 10 or 11 states, and including Washington, D.C., have now legalized physician-assisted dying under strict guidelines. So this is legal in some states to do what he did. And it would have to be under strict guidelines, and I assume the patient would have to sign some type of end-of-life waiver or something like that. I don't know. His methods were crude, according to some, and his public persona was abrasive. He had no regrets. He thought he was doing what was best for people that were in a bad way and just wanted to, peacefully go. But he forced a conversation in America that was unavoidable. So he remains a symbol of medicine's most crazy, enduring questions. Should we have the right to die on our own terms? So we're currently at Groveland Oaks County Park, which is here in Holly, Michigan. In Holly, Michigan, which is about a half hour north west of Jack Kevorkian's final resting place, where on June 4th of 1990, Janet Adkins and her husband drove from Portland, Oregon, here to this park to meet with Jack Kevorkian, where she laid in the back of his rusted out Volkswagen van, white van, and pushed the button that ended her life. He hooked her up with an IV with 3 different solutions, and she pressed the button on her own accord, and within minutes she was deceased. So Janet Adkins was a 54-year-old English teacher who had the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. She lived in Portland, Oregon, and she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 1989. She was in the early stages of this disease and was still mentally competent, but fearing the decline associated with this disease, she made the decision to end her life while she still could make the choice of sound mind and body. She and her husband were longtime members of the Hemlock Society, which is an organization advocating for the right to die with dignity. She contacted Jack Kevorkian after reading about his interest in physician-assisted suicide. The procedure was performed in the back of Kevorkian's 1968 rusted-out white Volkswagen van that was parked right here in one of these parking spots at this campground here in Michigan that we're at. Her death was actually the first time Kevorkian assisted in a suicide, which made his name a household name. Now, he did not push the button or commit the act. She voluntarily pushed the button, but he set it up for her. And of course, Michigan prosecutors attempted to bring charges, but at the time there were no specific laws banning physician-assisted suicides. So he was not prosecuted in this case. But it did launch him into the spotlight. Lots of media coverage, lots of interviews, things like that. And this continued on for a long time until he assisted in the suicide on national television, in which he personally pushed the button. So the death was at his hand. Now her case, Janet Adkins, became kind of a landmark moment in the euthanasia debate. And critics argued, that she was not terminally ill, and she had many years of life ahead of her. But supporters kind of praised her courage and emphasized, the importance of personal anatomy and the right to avoid future suffering. But her and her husband drove from Portland, Oregon to meet Jack Kevorkian right here in this very parking lot at Groveland Oaks County Park in Holly, Michigan, where she laid in the back of his van, pushed the button, and within minutes, she was gone. What happened after this, you ask? Well, he calls the police and says, I just assisted in a suicide, and I have a woman's deceased body here. I need the coroner to come pick her up. It was pretty much that simple for him. Crazy story. Now, I'm not sure what parking spot or what location exactly they were in. I do know it was somewhere here in this parking lot. Now, this is a campground. I'm not sure how big this was back when this happened, but this is a full-blown campground. There's all kinds of playgrounds, activities, people walking, kids walking. So how this went unnoticed is beyond me. Maybe things were, and we actually had to check in at a check-in barn, if you will, to come in here. So this was probably unmonitored back then. But yeah, this is the spot right here. Kevorkian's first physician-assisted suicide took place right here in this parking lot. Janet Adkins, 54, from Portland, Oregon. Crazy.